All right, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So if this is your first time stopping by, welcome. This is a channel dedicated around entrepreneurship, building up your personal and business credit so that you can use some of that funding to ultimately scale your ideas and your dreams and build it up into an income source. So again, if this is your first time here and if that type of content jives with you, consider hitting the subscribe button down below. But today I wanted to take a more practical approach of sharing with you 4 different ways that people are getting rich. Now, spoiler alert, one of these ways is possibly the least likely way that you are going to get rich yourself, especially if you are on YouTube right now and you're looking for this type of content, and you're gonna figure out what that is here in just a second. But there are 3 out of the 4 can be done quickly, and one of them is going to take up a little bit more time. So without further ado, let's jump right into the first one, and that's an inheritance. Now, like I mentioned earlier with the spoiler alert, yes, that is going to be possibly the least likely one. But the other side of that, the little caveat, is it's going to be the fastest way for you to get rich. Being born into money, right? Some call it royalty, some call it an inheritance, others call it privilege. However you want to slice and dice it, that only makes up about 22% of all millionaires. This means that millionaires that are made in first generation or possibly first time millionaires in their family legacy makes up for about 70 to 75%. Now, I'm not sure about you, but this is good news for me because it actually means that the odds are stacked in my favor of becoming a millionaire if that's the thought process that you have. So if you're watching this channel right now and you're thinking to yourself, man, I really want to make more money. I have a good business idea. I know I'm in a good market. I know that I have what it takes. I have the hustle. I have the strategies. I have funding behind me, or maybe I'm looking to come together with a group of people to build up that funding. Then I know that I can take this to the next level. The good news is that you have odds stacked in your favor. So rather than seeing the glass half empty, see it as the glass half full. Now, for the first one, I don't want to spend too much time on because even though it is the easiest one that people get grandfathered into, it's not necessarily one that we can really strategize and build around. So I want to put our focus onto the second way that people are becoming rich. And like I mentioned, out of the 3, this is one of them that people are becoming rich off of this type of thing the fastest, and that's going to be becoming an early adapter. What the heck does that mean to become an early adapter? When you're an early adapter, think of it like this. There were people that made a killing when back in the 40s or back in the 30s in New York, even the 20s, when they started opening up concession stands. They started selling fruits. They started selling 5-cent coffee. They started selling newspapers. They started possibly bringing ice blocks or even milk cartons to somebody's front door. If somebody was in that space early enough, odds are they made a name for themselves because they were an early adopter to the information and to the type of market that was being created in that time. But let's fast forward because some of those markets and some of those niches have come and gone. What's happening now? Have you been paying attention to NFTs? Have you possibly been researching crypto? Have you been paying attention to maybe digital marketing? Have you been paying attention to maybe a specific niche in your area that people have been wanting to pay money for? Like, for example, if I were to say right now, I live in Florida, and if someone were to ask me, hey, Irv, I have a brilliant idea. Okay, what's your idea? I'm looking to help people clear the snow off of their front lawns. Well, newsflash, it doesn't snow much in Florida, but bring that same idea and that same concept to maybe Buffalo, New York, or maybe bring that same idea and maybe parts of Indiana where it snows, or even Wisconsin. Yeah, there's a market for that. Now, obviously, you may not be an early adopter for that, but I use that example to say you have to pay attention to your markets, because you can be, and I've said this before, but you can be a good entrepreneur in a bad market. Most likely, the market's going to win. And you can be a bad entrepreneur in a good market. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a tailwind, and odds are that that market, especially if it's early on, is going to carry you as a tailwind. Think of it the other way. There are people right now that are on TikTok as early adopters, the same way that there were people that were on Instagram as early adopters. Now, this message isn't necessarily for influencers, but if you can get your business early enough on some of these platforms, and again, I want to use this as an example because it's possibly the most practical way that we are seeing this right now in 2021 going into 2022 with NFTs, crypto, and social media. If you are an early adopter on these platforms, this means that you have more organic eyeballs on you, kind of like what Instagram was in 2012, kind of like what YouTube was in 2010, 2011. We're seeing that with platforms like TikTok. This means that you are able to build your reputation and you're able to build your brand and you're able to showcase your services with little to minimal competition before they actually get into that space. And by the time competition actually gets into that space, you've already carved an area so tight for you that only you fit in. The third way for you to become rich, and by the way, this is the third and final way that you can become rich, the fastest is going to be building a business. Now, one thing that I always tell entrepreneurs whenever I'm doing a consultation call or whenever I'm speaking to someone that wants to scale their business to maybe their first 6 figures, or maybe there's like a part in their business that they can't quite figure out just yet, is building a business is simple. It's just not easy. The reason it's not easy is because the actual elements of building a business, it's you have an idea, you start working on the idea, you start shaping out what works for the idea, what doesn't. You start keeping what works and you start implementing, you start stacking on top of that idea, and then you start either throwing away what doesn't work, or you start kind of revamping of maybe it was just the wrong timing, maybe it was just the wrong market, maybe it was just the wrong messaging, maybe it's just the wrong piece, right? Whatever that is for you, maybe it's the wrong product, the wrong service, whatever that can be. And ultimately, you start landing on more sales. Ultimately, you start growing your revenue, and ultimately, you start becoming, you start getting recognized for your work and for what it is that you do. But when you are in a place where you're building your business, the part that a lot of people get stuck on is the part where it's not easy. And so let's talk about that. It's simple, but it's not easy, meaning there is an emotional bandwidth that you have to go through in your business. There's parts of the business where you thought an idea that you had was going to pop off, and unfortunately, it ended up blowing up in your face. There's some emotional bandwidth that goes into that. Or maybe you had a business partner or some alliances set up and they ended up going off and working with a competitor. That's some emotional bandwidth that you have to live with. Or what about the other side of business that a lot of people don't talk about? That's the income side. That's just the income generating side, but the income side of how much revenue is actually coming in and how much capital you can tap into. I mentioned all of these moving pieces, and not to scare anyone away from business, because this is a channel dedicated to business and entrepreneurship, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into when you are working in business and when you're starting to scale and really starting to pick up traction. I've noticed that some of the best entrepreneurs and some of the best business owners that I've come across are those people that built up enough momentum and had enough tailwind behind them. So when those moments did come, they're able to kind of break through those walls. But more importantly than just breaking through those walls, and more importantly than just breaking doors down, how about we think about it like this? If a door is closed, why not start looking for more doors that are possibly open, that we can take advantage of opportunities? Because a lot of times what ends up happening is we try to force timing on things that aren't ready yet. And rather than force timing on things that aren't ready yet, why not work on something else? So when this area right here seasons, and when it's actually ready for us to navigate it, when it's actually ready for us to penetrate that part of the market, it becomes an easier process and it becomes better in terms of your longevity in business. And now the fourth and final way for you to get rich, and this isn't necessarily the easiest one. Well, I could say it's possibly the easiest one. This isn't necessarily the fastest one is what I want to say, but it's one that maybe takes the longest to build out. If you're obviously playing the long game here, which I hope that if you're watching this, you are. And that's going to be investing. Now, yes, there's investments out there like in NFTs. Yes, there's a bunch of cryptos out there where you can put in $100 today. We've all seen the memes, right? If you put in your stimulus check, your $1,200 in January, by March of 2021, you could have been worth $287 million. We get it. Sometimes those memes and those posts kind of bother me because it's like, okay, dude, why not just post that sooner, right? It's kind of like, oh, if you would have invested $1,500 in Apple, then you could have been worth $45 million today in 1987. Okay, dude, what am I supposed to do with this information other than feel bad for myself for missing the boat? But you kind of get where I'm coming from with this, right? So one of the surest ways that you can build wealth and build wealth the right way is going to be by opening up your IRA accounts, making sure that you're maxing out your 401k accounts, making sure that you're investing in things like index funds, ETFs, mutual funds. I personally like SPY. It matches the S&P 500, VOO, SPY. You also have VOO if you're looking at Vanguard. Why do I bring that up? And why do I even mention that, right? It's boring. It's not sexy, but it's the thing that's going to make you rich over a long period of time. Anytime that you have a certain amount of income that comes in, you want to throw that into your investments. It could be 10%. You could be following the 50-30-20 rule. You could maybe have your own, where maybe you have a 60-30-10 rule. Whatever that looks like for you, find a sweet spot of any excess capital that you have. Throw it into your investments rather than it just sitting in your bank account collecting dust. It's not going to collect interest and it's not going to grow for you. That's if we're talking about stocks, ETFs. Yes, I'm all for investing in crypto. Yes, I'm all for exploring your options with NFTs. But understand, this is still a highly uncharted territory that a lot of people are going to lose money in. So when you're throwing money into some of these investments, I personally see it as, this is money that I'm willing to lose. I'm not throwing my life savings into it. I'm not throwing money that I could have used to hire out more help to scale my business. This is money that I possibly just could have spent this on a big vacation, or I possibly could have spent this recklessly over a year, right? So think of it like that. And that way, if, let's say, the investment goes south, it doesn't hurt you, right? No one wants to lose money, but I would say that that's maybe the easiest way that we can kind of navigate these different types of investments without getting whiplashed. So if you found value in this content, and I hope you did, consider hitting that subscribe button down below. Join the official community. Don't forget that anytime I'm not posting on here, I'm posting over on my other channel, which is my podcast, the Inside with Irv Show. So if you like what we have going on over here, you'll love what we have going on over there. Once again, I appreciate you guys checking me out. Till next time, everyone, I will see you in the next video.